Teasing secrets. Get ready to be surprised. Keanu Reeves reveals shocking secrets about his career in this candid interview. Discover the unexpected hurdles he faced and the personal struggles that shaped the actor we know and love. Before red carpets, slow-motion action scenes, and fan adoration, there was just a quiet young man with a strange name and a quiet fire in his heart. Keanu Charles Reeves was born in Beirut, Lebanon, in 1964. His father left when he was just 3 years old. His mother moved the family from place to place. First Australia, then New York, and finally Toronto, where Keanu would grow up. By the time he was a teenager, he had already learned what it meant to feel unsettled, to never quite belong. He wasn't a straight-A student. School bored him. Authority annoyed him. But he was curious about one thing: performance. Not for applause, not for fame, but because something about disappearing into a role felt like freedom, like honesty, like home. In high school, Keanu discovered acting. The theater teacher noticed something different about him. Keanu wasn't loud or overly dramatic like the other students. But when he stepped into a role, something changed. He could hold still. He could listen. He could make silence speak. After dropping out of school, Keanu made the leap to acting professionally. His first jobs were humble. Small theater plays, CBC television movies, even a Coca-Cola commercial where he played a cycling teenager. These weren't glamorous roles, but he showed up on time, learned quickly, and gave everything, even when no one was really watching. Then came the move to Los Angeles. Keanu's early days in Hollywood were filled with rejection. He had the look, but it was unusual. He had the voice, but it was soft, different. Casting agents couldn't place him. Too foreign, too quiet, too serious. And worst of all, not marketable. Still, Keanu kept going. He landed small parts in films like Youngblood, 1986, playing a hockey goalie. But it wasn't until River's Edge that people started noticing. The movie was a dark, emotional story about teenagers dealing with a murder. Critics praised Keanu's subtle performance. It wasn't loud. It wasn't flashy. But it was real. That role opened the door to more projects, but not necessarily better ones. Hollywood was still trying to figure him out. Was he the quiet rebel? The shy love interest? The outsider? Then came the film that would both make and nearly break him. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, 1989. Keanu played Ted, a lovable, clueless, time-traveling teenager with a goofy charm. The film became a cult classic, and suddenly Keanu was famous. Really famous. Magazines called him a heartthrob. Fans started quoting his lines. Studios started offering him the same type of roles over and over again. But here's what most people didn't realize. Keanu hated being boxed in. He appreciated the success, of course, but he didn't want to be remembered as just the whoa dude guy. He had other stories to tell. He had other sides he hadn't even explored yet. The fame didn't feel like freedom. It felt like a new kind of prison. It was a strange position to be in. Keanu had finally broken into the industry, but only as a version of himself that didn't feel true. And worse, some critics began dismissing him entirely. They called him wooden, said he was lucky, that he had no real range. Behind the scenes, Keanu was struggling, not with fame, but with identity, with purpose, with the question every artist eventually faces. Is this who I really am, or just who they want me to be? He kept acting, of course. He was grateful, but he started turning down roles that felt repetitive. He wanted to grow, not just get rich. And that's when the industry began to whisper that Keanu Reeves was difficult. But he wasn't difficult. He was just different. He didn't party. He didn't chase tabloids. He didn't demand star treatment. In fact, Keanu lived simply. Rode the subway, hung out with crew members, memorized everyone's name on set, even shared his paychecks with struggling artists and stuntmen. Not because he wanted credit, but because it was the right thing to do. Through the early 90s, he bounced between romantic dramas, indie projects, and the occasional action film. For every hit, there were flops. For every good review, there were 3 bad ones. But here's what remained constant. Keanu kept showing up, kept trying, kept learning. Every role, no matter how small or strange, was another step in a silent journey of self-discovery. He He wasn't trying to be the best actor in Hollywood. He was trying to be an honest one. And in that quiet pursuit, Keanu Reeves began laying the foundation for something bigger, something that would one day transform how the world saw him. But for now, he remained in the shadows, misunderstood, undervalued, standing at the edge of greatness, with no guarantees, only his instincts. As Keanu Reeves's face began appearing on movie posters and in magazines, something subtle and troubling was happening behind the scenes. He had become a Hollywood type, not officially, of course. No one stamped a label on him, but the pattern was impossible to ignore. After Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, the offers began pouring in. Teen comedies, light-hearted buddy movies, action flicks where the hero didn't say much but looked good holding a gun. Characters described in scripts with phrases like laid-back, carefree, surfer guy, the cool outsider. He was always the mysterious loner, the quiet heartthrob, or the dazed rebel with a skateboard and a catchphrase. Studios saw what worked and wanted more of it. Copy, paste, profit. And it worked for a while. Audiences loved seeing Keanu as the charming slacker or the soft-spoken guy with a confused gaze. It felt easy familiar. But while the public was cheering, Keanu was cringing. To him, acting wasn't just a job. It was a craft, a path to explore different aspects of human nature. But the roles he was being offered all felt the same. Like he was stuck playing a character that wasn't evolving, and worse, wasn't him. He began to see the machine that drove Hollywood. Repetition, formulas, and safety. If something worked, the studios wanted it again. And again. And again. Originality wasn't rewarded. Risk wasn't encouraged. Keanu knew he could keep cashing in. Say yes to every sequel. Take every paycheck. Play the same role until the audience got tired of it. But something inside him said no. He began turning down roles, big roles, sequels to hits, high-paying studio films, even action movies that were guaranteed to be box office smashes. To many, this looked like career suicide. Who in their right mind walks away from millions of dollars and guaranteed fame? One agent even told him bluntly, "You're lucky to even be getting roles. Why mess it up?" But Keanu didn't see it that way. He wasn't in this to play it safe. He wasn't here to coast. He wanted to grow. He once said in an interview, "I want to play people who are real, who are flawed, who are dealing with something, not just action heroes who don't blink." It wasn't that he thought he was too good for commercial films. In fact, Keanu had deep respect for the craft of all filmmaking. What he didn't want was to be boxed in, to be told, "This is all you are." He had more to say. He just needed the right scripts, the right collaborators, the right moment. And so, quietly, courageously, he began to take risks. He chose films like My Own Private Idaho, a gritty, emotional story about love, identity, and loneliness, directed by indie filmmaker Gus Van Sant. In it, Keanu played a rich kid turned street hustler. It was raw, strange, and far removed from his public image. Critics were surprised. Some praised him. Others were confused. But Keanu didn't care about the reviews. He cared about the challenge. He acted in Little Buddha, a deeply spiritual film about reincarnation and inner peace. He signed on to Much Ado About Nothing, diving into Shakespearean verse, even though many thought he didn't have a training for it. He played flawed, sometimes unlikable characters. He showed emotion, vulnerability, complexity. And while the world still saw him, smiling in romantic comedies or kicking down doors in action flicks, behind the curtain, Keanu was on a very different journey. He was searching for purpose, for authenticity, for truth in the roles he chose. He began taking pay cuts so that smaller films could afford to hire better actors or put more into production. He read scripts no one else wanted. He took meetings with unknown directors. He stayed after filming wrapped to help clean up sets. He didn't just want to be in movies. He wanted to understand the heartbeat of storytelling. Yet Hollywood still tried to contain him. There was always another studio executive ready with a one-liner. "We're bringing back the Ted character. Audiences love him. You'd be perfect for the surfer cop again. Just one more sequel." But Keanu kept walking away. It didn't make sense to most people, especially not in an industry where every actor is racing toward the spotlight, clawing for relevance. But Keanu was walking in the opposite direction, away from fame, away from certainty, towards something unknown, something honest. In time, this silent rebellion would redefine his legacy. Because while most actors were busy being what the world expected of them, Keanu was slowly, patiently, becoming something no one saw coming. A true artist, a man unafraid to be misunderstood, uninterested in applause if it meant losing his voice, a soul who refused to be a brand, even when the brand was working. Keanu didn't want to be famous. He wanted to be free. The turning point came in the mid-1990s, a period that would quietly define Keanu Reeves not just as a movie star, but as a man who refused to be controlled by the machine of Hollywood. After a string of action hits, including The Explosive Speed in 1994, Keanu had officially reached household name status. He played Officer Jack Traven, a fearless, sharp cop who literally saves a bus full of passengers from a bomb. The film was a box office smash. It earned over $350 million worldwide and made Keanu a global icon. So naturally, when Speed 2 went into development, the studio expected Keanu to return. They were ready to back the money truck up to his door. Reports say he was offered anywhere between $11 and $15 million, a staggering amount for any actor at the time. But Keanu said no. Just like that. The press was stunned. Headlines questioned his sanity. Agents were confused. Executives were furious. Who turns down a guaranteed blockbuster? They asked. Why walk away from a payday most actors would kill for? But Keanu wasn't trying to impress anyone. He had taken a hard look at the script and realized something important. It was the same story in a different setting. The bus had been replaced by a boat. The villain was different, but the formula was the same. There was nothing new in the role, nothing meaningful to explore. And Keanu, at the peak of his popularity, chose integrity over income. Instead of making Speed 2, he went on tour with his band Dogstar. Then, as studios scratched their heads, he made two unexpected film choices that revealed exactly what kind of actor he wanted to become. First came The Devil's Advocate, 1997, a dark, psychological legal thriller where Keanu starred opposite Al Pacino, playing a morally conflicted lawyer lured into a world of power, greed, and evil. The role was intense. The themes were heavy. Keanu showed range, depth, vulnerability, and he held his own next to one of the most iconic actors of all time. Then came A Walk in the Clouds, a gentle, romantic drama set in post-World War II California. Keanu played a soft-spoken soldier helping a pregnant woman avoid shame from her traditional family. It was poetic, slow, and emotional. A stark contrast to the loud explosions and chase scenes audiences had come to expect from him. The critics? Split. Some praised his courage to diversify. Others mocked his performances, saying he was in over his head. But Keanu didn't fight back. He didn't explain or argue. He just kept going. Because for him, the real battle wasn't against critics. It was against stagnation. He wanted to grow, not be safe. He wanted to feel, not perform. So he made a decision. Surround himself with people who saw beyond the image, who were willing to take risks. He began collaborating with independent directors. He deliberately took pay cuts just to be part of stories he believed in. He sat in on editing sessions. He asked questions. He practiced for months before filming. And perhaps most humbling of all, he hired a Shakespearean acting coach to help him understand rhythm, emotion, and language on a deeper level. While other action stars were collecting blockbuster after blockbuster, Keanu was in dark rehearsal halls, working on monologues, studying human behavior, watching old silent films to understand how the body can speak louder than words. Most people didn't see this. They just saw another cool guy with a gun on screen. But behind the scenes, Keanu was reinventing himself. And then, in 1999, something happened that would change everything. A script landed on his desk. A strange, philosophical, sci-fi action story written by two relatively unknown directors at the time, Lana and Lily Wachowski. The project was risky, expensive, weird. The studio wasn't entirely sold. The script was dense. Words like simulated reality, the one, and machine overlords didn't scream box office gold. But Keanu was captivated, not by the action, but by the ideas. He read the script cover to cover. Not once, but several times. He asked the Wachowskis questions, not about how many explosions were in the film, but about the message. He wanted to understand what the story meant on a soul level. And once he did, he was all in. He trained for months. Martial arts, wire work, philosophy. Keanu didn't just want to play Neo. He wanted to become Neo, not as a superhero, but as a symbol of awakening. A man who learns that reality isn't what it seems, and that true freedom comes from knowing yourself. The result was The Matrix, a film that would go on to become one of the most influential movies of all time. Critics raved. Audiences lined up. It wasn't just a blockbuster, it was a cultural moment. But for Keanu, it was something else entirely. It was validation that the quiet path he had chosen, the risky decisions, the late-night study sessions, the roles that critics mocked, had all led to this. He had not sold out. He had not followed the formula. He had taken the leap and landed exactly where he needed to be. The Matrix wasn't just another sci-fi action film. It was a revolution. Released in 1999, it redefined not only the genre, but what an action movie could be. It blended philosophy, technology, martial arts, and emotion in ways that Hollywood had never quite attempted before. And at the heart of it all, standing between reality and illusion, bullets and destiny, was Keanu Reeves. He wasn't just playing another stylish hero in sunglasses. He was Neo, a man waking up to the terrifying truth that the world around him was a lie, a simulation, and that he was somehow meant to change everything. For Keanu, this wasn't just a role, it was a culmination. Years of rejection, years of being typecast, years of being told he wasn't good enough, deep enough, versatile enough. But this time, with The Matrix, people finally saw him. Critics who had once rolled their eyes at his performances now praised his commitment, his physical discipline, his calm gravitas, and perhaps most importantly, the emotional honesty he brought to a role that could have easily become just another action cliché. Audiences were mesmerized. The film became a cultural touchstone. Phrases like red pill and The Matrix entered everyday language. Neo became a symbol of awakening, of truth-seeking, of questioning everything we've been told. And for Keanu, it was validation, not just of his talent, but of his choices. He had taken the hard road, turned down blockbusters, studied his craft, and said no when it would have been easy to say yes. And now, the world was finally realizing maybe he hadn't just been lucky. Maybe he had been intentional all along. But instead of riding that wave of success into a string of predictable hits, Keanu did what he always did. He surprised everyone. In the early 2000s, fresh off the success of The Matrix, he could have taken the biggest roles in Hollywood. But he chose variety, animation, drama, comedy, and even direction. He voiced characters in children's films like Toy Story 4, where he played Duke Kaboom, a Canadian daredevil toy with a fragile ego and a big heart. He embraced the humor, the vulnerability, the absurdity, and kids and their parents loved it. He acted in thoughtful dramas like The Lake House, a time-bending romance that showed his softer, more emotional side. He lent his quiet presence to ensemble pieces and indie films, many of which flew under the radar. But in every role, he gave it his full heart. No ego, no shortcuts. Then, in a bold move, Keanu stepped behind the camera to direct his own film, Man of Tai Chi, 2013. It was a martial arts movie, yes, but more than that, it was a meditation on inner struggle, control, and morality. Keanu didn't just direct it. He trained with fighters, studied fight choreography, and played the film's main villain, something most stars of his status rarely risk. It wasn't a box office smash, but that didn't matter. For Keanu, it was another step in his journey toward creative freedom and artistic honesty. And just when people thought his best years were behind him, came John Wick. In 2014, Keanu returned to the big screen in what was supposed to be a modest, low-budget action movie about a retired assassin avenging the death of his dog. The premise sounded simple, even silly, but what followed was one of the most stunning career resurgences in Hollywood history. John Wick wasn't just a movie. It was a masterclass in world-building, precision choreography, and emotional depth hidden behind gunfire and style. Keanu didn't just perform the role. He trained for months, doing most of his own stunts, learning judo and Brazilian jiu-jitsu, practicing tactical gun work until his movements were second nature. People were stunned. At 50 years old, Keanu was doing things most 25-year-old action stars couldn't pull off. And more importantly, he wasn't doing it to look cool. He was doing it to serve the story, to bring authenticity to a character who had suffered loss, trauma, and isolation. John Wick wasn't a Superman. He was broken, grieving, and human. And Keanu played him with a quiet, raw energy that made audiences believe every moment. The success of the John Wick franchise skyrocketed Keanu back into the spotlight. But this time, it was different. This time, he wasn't Ted. He wasn't just Neo. He was Keanu Reeves, the man who could disappear into any role, the artist who had earned his respect the hard way. Suddenly, the world was looking at him through a new lens. Memes called him the internet's boyfriend. Fans shared stories of his kindness, his generosity, his humility. Photos of him sitting alone on a park bench went viral, dubbed Sad Keanu, capturing something people connected to, his realness. And what made it all the more powerful? He never asked for any of it. He never bragged, never boasted, never claimed to be more than he was. The man who once struggled to escape the shadow of one goofy character had now become something rare in the entertainment world, a quiet legend, a symbol of perseverance, of dignity, of depth. Today, Keanu Reeves is more than just a movie star. He's become something else, something rare in the world of flashing lights and fast fame. A symbol of patience in a world obsessed with speed. A symbol of perseverance in an industry that discards people the moment they stop trending. A symbol of integrity, quietly proving that success doesn't have to come at the cost of your soul. From the beginning, Keanu never chased celebrity. He never tried to be the loudest voice in the room. He wasn't fighting to dominate headlines or control the narrative around his life. In fact, he often stepped out of the spotlight entirely. But somehow, that made people lean in closer. He never shouted for attention, yet the world watches him closely. He never begged for roles, yet directors admire his commitment. He never broke the rules of Hollywood. He simply refused to be shaped by them. There were so many moments in his career when it would have been easier to play along, to take the money, to say the lines, and collect the fame. But Keanu made a different choice every time. When studios wanted him to stick to type, he stepped away. When he could have chased sequels, he chased silence. When critics doubted him, he doubled down, not with arrogance, but with humility and hard work. At every career crossroads, he chose the harder path, the one with fewer guarantees, the one that might not bring instant praise, but would lead to something far more valuable: authenticity. And what's most remarkable is not just how talented he is, but how consistent he's been as a human being. Stories about Keanu's kindness are legendary. Fans share moments that seem almost unreal. Keanu buying ice cream just so he can sign a receipt for a fan. Keanu giving up his seat on the subway. Keanu quietly donating millions of dollars to cancer research in honor of his late sister, without ever making it public. He's known for arriving early to set, for knowing the names of crew members, for eating lunch with the stunt team instead of isolating in a trailer, for giving away portions of his salary so that other actors or technicians could be hired. In the Matrix sequels alone, it's reported that he gave up tens of millions so the film's budget could support better visual effects and behind-the-scenes talent. But if you ask Keanu about any of this, he'll smile, nod politely, and change the subject. Because in interviews, he rarely brags. He often deflects praise. And even now, after decades of work, he still seems genuinely surprised that people care about him at all. But make no mistake, every role he's taken, every film he's chosen, every person he's treated with dignity tells the same quiet story. I'm more than you think I am. And maybe that's why so many people, especially those who feel lost, overlooked, or underestimated, see something of themselves in Keanu Reeves. Because his story isn't about fame. It's about choice. The choice to keep going when you're told you're not enough. The The choice to walk away from what's easy when your heart knows better. The choice to stay humble, even when the world tries to crown you king. In a world obsessed with quick results, Keanu Reeves took the long road. In an industry addicted to reinvention, he remained consistent. And in a culture that rewards noise, Keanu reminded us of the power of silence. He doesn't dominate social media. He doesn't lecture the world from a pedestal. He doesn't chase controversy. Yet somehow, when Keanu speaks, people listen. When he appears, people smile. And when his name is mentioned, even in passing, it brings with it a kind of respect that money can't buy and fame can't fake. Because Keanu didn't build a brand. He built a reputation, brick by brick, roll by roll, moment by quiet moment. And now, looking back on his journey, from the boy who struggled to read in school, to the actor who was mocked for being wooden, to the man who became the face of multiple cinematic revolutions, it's clear. Keanu Reeves didn't just survive Hollywood. He transcended it. And for anyone out there, anyone standing at a crossroads, unsure of their worth, doubting their direction, or feeling like they're being overlooked, Keanu Reeves offers more than just inspiration. He offers a reminder. You don't have to be loud to be legendary. You just have to be true.